Welcome to the Drum Machine Battle Royale Korg Edition. What we have here is three evolutions of the same idea. We have the Electribe Rhythm, ER1 as it's called, which eventually evolved into the Electribe 2. And I believe that the same concept that goes on here eventually evolved into the Volca drum. Let the battle begin. In the red corner, representing 2003, it is the Korg ER1 MK2, aka the original Electribe series. In the gray corner, representing 2015, we have the Korg Electribe 2. In the gold corner, representing 2019, it's the Korg Volca drum. Where should we start here? Let's start off with the oldest one. Let's start off with the Korg ER1. So what do we have here? This is a pretty simple drum machine. You've got four synthesized voices. Along with 4 sample voices. The basic architecture of the synthesizer is an oscillator with a single modulator. An amp with only a decay. It's always really snappy. So your modulation types, you have an envelope, a sort of a random, a sample and hold, a triangle, a square, and a saw. So you can Well, this is a good machine for like some sound effects. Basically, you can modulate the one sound all the way up into FM area. And you can make some kind of cool drums with this thing. I would say as far as like the drum abilities, this thing, the majority of your standard kick style. This is an FM kick you're hearing right here. I wonder if that's passable. Let's see. Not bad. But the majority of your drum sounds are going to come from taking an envelope modulating the pitch. So you're going to put your pitch up. So with no modulation, you're getting a little impulse click and a flat tone. And I guess by giving it more of a quickly decreasing pitch, you get that kick sound. switch it from a sine wave to a triangle wave. Slightly more harmonics there. You got a low boost, which also can go into distortion. It's a really simple engine. By using the random, you can create white noise. So going back to my first one here. I'm gonna take the modulation, put it at 0. Take the speed down. I'm gonna go to random. Basically just turns into noise. Pretty simple machine. Has 4 bars, audio in, basically just a delay. It has a ring modulator and a cross modulator. Yeah, and that's really pretty much it. Can't do polyrhythms, stuck in 16 slots. Yeah, that's it. Simple, easy to get your hang of. Low boost that can go into distortion. 2 different types of delays. Cross mod, ring mod. Basic synthesis. Single tone. Multiple modulation types, speed and depth. Love it. Now moving on. The Electribe 2. This one's a little tougher, right? So what we have here is a full-fledged groove box, and not only can it do the synth parts like this can, it can do more melodic type synths, and it can even do samples, kind of like this has the ROMs or the sample sounds. This has PCM sounds that it can do. Obviously, actually, I mean, with enough work, you can get like Hack Tribe OS or the Sampler OS on this. This one has the Electribe Shaman OS. You can change out the samples, so we're not going to even compare samples. Like, who cares if the open hat sounds better on the ER1 versus the Electribe 2? You can put the open hi-hat in the Electribe 2. What we're focused here on is drum synthesis, so we're going to focus in on like how you can make things sound. So starting here, it's a saw wave, right? You got your oscillators. There's a sine. You can take the sine and you can hit the sine with some modulation. like this. Man, I'm getting a lot of buzz. What is that coming from? We're going to ignore all that buzz for today. You can make your kick there. Just like on this one, you could change your modulation type from an envelope to LFO. And just like on this one, you can get it up into that FM territory. I would say that the modulator on here is a lot slower. So on the ER1, you can get, let's see here. The ER1, you can go. The ER1, you kind of get into FM, like I'd say about the 55-60% mark on the knob, maybe 50%. So below that, you can hear the modulation, right? As soon as you start to go above that, I'd say that's about the 50% mark. Becomes a little more FM-y, where the brain kind of smears the modulation together into a single tone. So because it goes so much faster, you have a lot wider range of FM sounds on this one. Where this one, not even. It probably goes into FM in the last 5% of the knob, so you really don't have a lot there. Let's see if we change. I'd say you have a lot less FM ability on this one, but you have so many more oscillators that maybe you could come up with similar sounds. Unfortunately, because it comes with so many PCM sounds, like this you have the 4. That's it, right? So this one, you've got banks and banks of sounds, so you could easily just dial up a kick. Which is essentially a sample, right? So to synthesize your own takes a little more effort. Definitely possible, but harder. You got white noise, these oscillators in here, so plenty to use there. Let's see what we got here. So, One thing that I immediately notice is that the ER1 seems to add a click, zero modulation. You hear the click? Now let's let this die off. There's a click. That's with no modulation. Over here, sine. Take the filter off. Not really a click on it. Now if I make it overlap, so it re-triggers, you get a little click of it re-triggering. But there's not really a click on it. But if we're just talking for sound design, for a drum machine, okay, that's an issue for synthesizing your kicks. But if we're just talking about for sound design, you do have all these voices, so you could easily just create a click sound, maybe using a stab of white noise. That's resonant. Let's go. That. Turn on the amp. Well, actually, we could keep the amp off, I think. Let's see what happens there. So. That's our tone that we're trying to get the kick out of. That's that click. Take the filter off of that. Envelope to pitch. Sequencer. Let's put this here. This is my click sound. If I put this, still to let's try with the amp envelope on it. There's our click. So yeah, you can easily, I mean, that's no comparison, but you can synthesize. You can synthesize the click in there. What else do I have to say about this? Each part has a effect. So where this one you have a master delay, which we can do here. Multiple types of delays. You can do your low boost on your individual effect, something like this. Get into distortion if you want. Or you can change that effect to be something else. Maybe one of my favorites, the disseminator. That could definitely give you that click at the beginning. Distortion. Yeah, so I'd say this machine is definitely capable of creating some good clicks, creating some cool stuff. When you add in the motion sequencing, which this has a single lane, now this has got kind of unlimited lanes, you can get some cool stuff. Obviously fair to say this is a more advanced synth engine, but it's not specifically made for rhythmic elements, even though you can do them, like as I'm showing, right? Overdrive. Yeah, a lot of options here. This thing, bit of a monster. So what we have here is 6 synth voices. Six synth voices, each one consisting of what they call 2 layers. So to show that simple, here's layer 1. I'm going to take layer 2. I'm going to turn that one all the way down. I'm going to go back to my layer 1. And you have a sine wave being modulated by an envelope with a what they call linear volume envelope. So your volume attack and your release. Long attack, fast release. Opposite. Modulation goes to negative, positive, just like on this one. So amount, rate, and release. On the ER1, you got decay, mod speed, and mod depth. This is all the same. You got your pitch, you got your pitch. These are lining up. The only thing you're getting here is the attack. On the surface, when you go into the menus, this is menu diving. This, by the way, no menu diving. Everything is surface level. Really nice. This one, very close to surface level. A couple little things you got to go into the menu for, but pretty surface level when it comes to sound design. So this one, you have beyond the 2 layers, which are identical, by the way. So you combined, it's the same way I combined right here where I made the bass note here with the click. Let me give an example of that. Made a click. Made a more like body. put them together to get my full sound. Same thing goes on here. We have the 2 layers. So yeah, where it gets a little more complex in here. Just like this one, you got the sine and the triangle, and you also have a white noise here. And the white noise can be, the modulation can be a high pass, a low pass, or a band pass. So that's kind of a one-up. As far as your modulation sources on this one, you've got the 6 sources, or 6 shapes rather, types, modulation types. On this vocal drum, you've got only 3: envelope, sine wave, and a random. Where this one you just have a decay and just everything's the same envelope. This one you have a on this one you have a linear envelope, and you can change it to a exponential envelope. And then you could change it to this very unique double peak envelope where you get sort of a double attack hit. Very hard to hear. It would offset the peak right off of the initial attack. Kind of a useful envelope there. Really clever stuff for percussion synthesis there. But like I was saying, it would appear these machines are pretty well matched. I just gave you a couple advantages here. Obviously having 6 dual layer voices versus 4 single layer voices, you got an advantage going over here. You can go into the menu, disadvantage having a menu, and from in the menu you can select some more parameters. So we have a bit crush, and another big annoyance is you can't audition the sound from within the menu, which is kind of it is what it is. It's a pain in the butt. So what I do is I just we'll lay down some triggers and have something playing. Then when I edit it, you can hear the things happening in real time. So we have this bit crusher. We have a wave folder. Because as you probably know, sine waves have very little harmonics. What usually happens is you're either FM modulating it, making it change pitch so rapidly that it creates harmonics, or you're distorting it into more of a square wave to get harmonics out of it. Another option is to fold the wave. So wave folder. Then we have a overdrive. Now, where I showed off that the Electribe 2 has a multi-effect master effect unit, the ER1 has 2 modes on delay. The vocal drum has what they call a wave guide, which is like a delay that goes up into speed, sort of like past a reverb, and more like a I don't know if comb filter is the right term, but like it goes into like a Carpus Strong sort of area, and it kind of is a very percussive sound that's unique. kind of in a nutshell, your ways to make a percussion would be sort of like regular synthesis. This is regular synthesis as well. Then going into like FM synthesis, and then car plus strong is sort of like a emulation of like natural acoustics a little bit. So you've got this tube, which obviously a lot of most drums have tubes, not strings. You also have a string on here, so you can imitate sort of a string instrument or a tube. Tube's kind of like a drum. So basically, it sounds something like this. Here, that already kind of gives it that sort of reflection that you get on an actual drum. And we can sort of tweak the size of the tube. And sort of how long the sound resonates or bounces around in there. To the point where it becomes its own tone almost. And we can sort of change the tuning of the tube. At the low levels, it becomes a delay again. We can switch to this string. Once again, you can sort of almost you can resonate the string to the point where it becomes a tone of its own. Could tune that down maybe. Yeah, so that gets some crazy sounds. Now, I actually have a move on the ER1 I like to do that's kind of similar. So if I take the delay, right, and I just put a little bit of time on it, so you get that sort of instant reflection. If you bring up the feedback too much, it becomes buzzy. But if you just give it just a little bit of delay. And I would imagine, because I have so many effects at my disposal on this one, I probably don't do anything like that, but I could.
So yeah, that wave resonator is incredible. That thing is capable of doing some crazy sounds.
So I was on the vocal drum, and I kind of was talking about the 2 layers. The way you select things is the worst on this out of all the equipment. So like this one here, you can see your modifiers and your this is your modulation types. You can just spin the knob to select your different modulation types. This one, it's almost like an algorithm. Like you scroll through every combination on the sine wave, every combination on the saw wave, and then every combination on the noise. It's just tedious to get to the different functions. But I was going to show that we could do FM over here. So right now I'm modulating this tone with a envelope, and I showed that we could change the shape of the envelope. But then if we scroll past that, we modulate it with the LFO, with the sine wave LFO. So what I'm going to do is just push the modulation speed up. Out. I would say just like on the Korg ER1, about the 50% mark on the knob, on the rate knob, you start to get to the FM stuff. So So because you have 256 resolution on the Volca drum versus 127 on the both the Electribes here, that gives you a lot more range of FM sounds. So while this one you can do FM modulation with a saw, a square, and a triangle, and there's actually no sine option, this one you get a little more range out of that sine option. So quite the range of stuff over there. Let's check it out over here.
Yeah, so I would say that there is less range and sort of a more dull lo-fi quality to this one. Yeah, so pretty similar there. Now, but if we come back over here to Electribe, I said that the modulator doesn't go fast enough to really make FM drums, right? But so there's my drum. Let's do a new wave. We actually have oscillator types that have FM in there. So like our duals, our octave apart, unisons, hard synced, sort of lo-fi, ring modulated, cross modulated. So if I go to cross modulated sine, we should get something. So when we start doing that, we actually do have quite a lot of FM capability within this thing. Yeah. So that is an envelope modulating the amount of modulation from the second oscillator. So like a FM amount. And that's not something possible on these two. And that actually gets a pretty pleasing sound. So I'd say while these are kind of a little more straightforward, you just take a oscillation shape and then speed it up to create your FM sounds. This one's yeah. So when you do this, yep. The Electribe 2 is starting to seem like a winner over here. Shockingly, most powerful sequencer. Lots of effects, better effect. And I'm almost going to call it two effects. And the wave folder and the bit crusher, the drive, all that sounds really good. There's a third way to make a kick on the Electribe 2 that you don't have on these two. And I know this isn't all about the kicks, it's about rhythmic sound design, but come on, most of us, at least those of us that make techno, we judge a drum machine off of its kick pretty heavy. That takes a lot of the weight. So this machine has no filters. This machine only has the ability to put filters on noise, white noise, and even then it's pretty limited. You have no resonance or filter types. The Electribe has all these emulations of filters, and they self-resonate, which is a way to make an incredible fed back sine tone. So another way you can make a kick, let me turn this down a little bit, it's like this. That is a very, let's see if I can give you an example. That is a very little amount of noise. Let's see here. That noise right there, pinging the filter, that's then self-resonating. Yeah. Strangely, I would say most fun, most interesting, most capable. That's 3 synthesized kicks. Currently, one of these Electribe 2s with the Hack Tribe OS, I'm good. I could do so much with it. It's like endless. When it comes to effects, I'm giving it to the Volca drum. Even though the Electribe 2 has more effect, each part has a send to the effects. This waveguide resonator is incredible. The waveguide sounds awesome. And then on each sound, you have a bit crusher, a wave folder, and an overdrive independently. This machine does not have any sort of wet dry send. The delay effect, which is really your only effect, minus this sort of low boost, which can overdrive. But this effect is on the master. Everything goes through it. Even the audio ints go through this. Patch storage. This one's kind of funny, but the advantage goes to the Volca drum. On the Volca drum, you have kit and program saved separately. You can save a program, load a program, save a kit, load a kit. So you're allowed to store 16 kits. The ER1 and the Electribe 2 store the settings. They don't really have patches. It kind of stores the sounds and the settings with the pattern. When it comes to sequencers, Volca drum takes the win as well as the step jump like you have on the Electribe 2. But then on top of that, you have the slice, which is like a ratchet. The advantage this has over the Electribe 2, which is kind of an unfair one, is the active step. So when you do the active step, you can not only change the end length like you can on Electribe 2, but you can change the starting point and take out steps in the middle to make pretty crazy polyrhythms. So advantage, Volca drum. Re-triggers per step, and you have probability per step. So when you combine all those, this is the superior sequencer. So good, actually, that I've modified mine to have a MIDI out because this sequencer is an incredible little tool. For polyrhythms, this cannot do them. There's nothing particularly wrong with the sequencer, but there's also not that much amazing with it. As far as playability, this one is actually the best. I can't really put my finger on it. Maybe because your triggers and your sequences are separate. It just feels good. The knobs, while they're close, they're spaced out just enough. Playability. Some people don't mind it, but the touch strip for me it lacks accuracy. On top of that, there's just so much crammed into such a little box. Even with it being small, you got a lot of empty real estate, and the knobs are kind of bunched together. I also have issues with parameters jumping. So like the catch versus jump style, where I would say if you just need to grab a drum machine and get to working, this is your pick. So for playability, this is taking the win. This is the loser when it comes to playability. When it comes to sound design, this I don't know, this is a tough one. I want to say this is the top pick, but the Electribe 2 never ceases to amaze me. I think all in all, this is a more interesting sound engine, especially when combined with the effects. I'm going to toss it up, the tie between this one. It's very capable. There's enough tricks and things you can do to get a lot of good sounds out of this. So while this is a good sound design tool, the Volca drum is just a little snappier and a little more made to do drums. And because of that, this is coming in second place. And even then, that's kind of a tough comparison because there is a certain je ne sais quoi about the ER1 that makes it so percussive. The Electribe 2 and the Volca drum are both battery powered. I am actually able to power the ER1 off of a USB battery pack with an adapter. So kind of a mute point, but obviously a little cleaner to have the batteries inside the unit. So as far as battery powered and portability, I'm giving it to the Volca drum for number 1 being smaller, and I'm giving it to Electribe 2 for being battery powered. So as far as picking my favorite, I really can't. It has a thing about it that it's hard to put your hands on. I mean, it physically feels better. It has kind of sharp edges, feels kind of industrial. If you needed a dedicated drum machine, this is probably a good, but this definitely doesn't deserve to be last. I actually did a album that I'll put up here on the screen that is heavily influenced and made using the Volca drum. I mean, probably 85 to 90% of the sounds you hear on that is all Volca drum. I think you should listen to that, and that is a testament to this thing's sound design capability. This machine is incredible, and I will do a little bit of a more in-depth review on this later, but with that said, spending so much time with it, not only did I learn to respect it and sort of live in awe about the complexities that lie within this machine, but also there were things that were like glaring mistakes that I hated about it that even after spending so much time, I just couldn't get over. So because of that, this is a tough sell. I think if you're really just focused on making percussive sounds, strange effects, weird sounds, this is the one. I mean, like I said, an entire album, very out there in my opinion, very kind of experimental, all from the Volca drum. I don't know, and it's inspiring to use for me. I don't know that I would have got the same inspiration and trippy sounds out of either of the other two drum machines. At least they wouldn't have come just, oozing out of this thing. This thing so quickly leaves drum territory and goes into strange sounds. It's almost harder to keep it in the drum sound, which by contrast, the ER1, it's kind of surprising how it stays very rhythmic in drums at all time. It doesn't really leave the drums very easily. The range on the parameters are very well tuned for drums, Obviously, the Electribe 2 is a synth, so it's broad and actually doesn't, kind of goes into drums the least. But there's the way it's tuned, it doesn't get into those weird, freaky sounds like this does. It kind of stays bread and butter. So great amount of respect to this, but at the same time, after working with it, it's hard to get past those limitations. Sound design, Sketchpad, sound module, sound source. Yes, 100%. This is the one. I mean, I made an album with it, so I can't sit here and say like, oh, you can't get real usable things out of it. For sure. I wouldn't say, oh, it's just to feed your sampler, because while it can make some really crazy sounds, there's a lot of magic to be had in the sequencer. I mean, it's an incredible thing. The interface makes it really challenging to use in a live setting. So if you're the type of person who likes to really play your drum machine and freak the parameters while it's recording or play it out, this isn't the one. It's a shame because it's really good and it's really close, but it ain't quite there. So it's a tough sell here. I would say if you want a more experimental sound, a more unique sound, this is your one. This is your pick out of the three, hands down. A lot of good things going on here. It will drive you crazy if you're going to try and use it in a hurry, put together something real quick. This is going to slow you down a little bit, but I think it's rewarding. It's worth the slowing down and extracting from it because it's rewarding. There's a lot of cool stuff here, but this is the least traditional out of them all, and the least playable, and probably the most difficult to use. So do with that as you will. Finally, if you watch my channel, you know I love this machine. So I don't really need to say too much about this. Go watch some of my other videos. This thing is limited, but it is inspiring. It is fun. It is fast. I love jamming on this. You give me 10, 15 minutes to jam, I got to come up with something. This is what I'm going to. Probably 10 out of 10 times, this is what I'm going to. So take this with a grain of salt. This machine is better in every way, in my opinion, than the ER1, but it is not a replacement for the ER1. The ER1 is special enough that I have both of them. You know what I mean? I don't need to sell my Electribe 1 rhythm because I have an Electribe 2. But even with that said, this is so good I own two of them. So this is a good one. Since this is a drum machine battle, if you got, chances are you're going to use this for samples. It is because you can flash it with the Hacktribe firmware or the sampler OS to make it a sampler. It's just so easy to use it with samples. And then, you have the effects and the filters and the envelope, so you can freak it even with a sample. You're not like locked into that static sound once it's sampled. But even if you have a good kick that you synthesize on here, it just makes sense to resample it. That does so much. Not only does it allow you to then pass it back through the filter again, the effects again, the envelope again. Not only can you double process it, which kind of can make a more complex sound, but it locks in that sound that you just created and sort of immortalizes it in audio. And that's an incredible feature. Resample and synthesis, that combination is incredible. Very rare thing out there. I believe, I could be wrong about this. Mind you, if you want to check out some of my drum machine opinions and studies, check out, it's not available yet online, but when it is, I will make sure to put a link in this video. My Drumazines, zine about my favorite rare and obscure drum machines. Not necessarily the best, but my personal favorites. So with my studies on drum machines, the combination of synthesis and samples is a common theme in a lot of drum machines. The one that I think really nails it is the analog rhythm from Electron. The analog rhythm, you can do that. You can, use its synth voice to create a sample, and then you can also layer the two. So you can have a sample and a synth voice layered together, which is a move like the Tempest did, where you would layer a sample with a synthesized part. So yeah, the fact that you can do that on here, even though it is a digital voice, you're sampling a digital voice, is incredible. So that can't be can't be denied. You're probably going to work with this more as a sampler than a synth, but you can synthesize full drum kits, record them to audio, lock them in, use them across different things, and then freak them once you've created them. So, you know, I can't discard this one as saying like, yeah, you need a drum machine. Don't get an Electribe 2. Yeah, right. You can get busy with Electribe 2. Don't let anybody fool you. I will say though, there is something, a quality to the sound which I find inferior. I would say that in terms of sound quality, the Volca drum might sound a little better when dialed in. Overall, the ER1 is just a solid drum machine, sounds best as a drum machine. And the Electribe 2, as much as I love it, there is like a thinness to the sound, which makes it not really my first pick for the overall sound, but still the ease of use, it's got to be worth something when it comes to synthesizing it. I mean, the Volca drum, you're going to really work to get the sound how you want it. And I don't know that it's that much better than doing it on the Electribe 2. So yeah, with those reasons, Electribe 2's got to stay in the mix. So this is really a useless comparison because I really don't have a good conclusion. I will say this, that actually having the machines all next to each other and hearing them one by one and trying to replicate some of the sounds from one machine to the next, I was actually shocked that I think with that layout, I think I prefer the Electribe 2. And if you would ask me, I mean, I just said it, if you asked me which one sounds the best, I would tell you like I just told you. I think it would probably be Volca drum, ER1, Electribe 2 coming in last place. But when I had all three of them together, I mean, go back and listen. I think this one kicked out the best kick drum out of them all, had the most range, hit hard, everything. I think this machine is really slept on. And it's hard to say that because I would totally tell you to buy a Volca drum because it can make some really unique sounds. If you don't want to sound like anyone else, go get yourself a Volca drum. If you want a sort of generic sounding drum machine, but it has a little thing to it, a little uniqueness, you don't want to do an 808, 909, go with the ER1. Solid drum machine. Sounds good. It could be a signature sound, but it's sort of subtle. It's not like obviously different. This one here, I don't know that people are flocking for that sound. I don't think it has anything about it that makes it special, but man, can it hit a lot of different sounds. So for sheer longevity, this is the one I'm taking if I don't have access to other machines. If I'm going to be locked in with one thing, I think across being able to resample the sounds that I create and then affect those on top of that, I think I can get a very wide range of usable sounds out of this. So I think I would get a lot of use out of this one. On top of that, velocity pads, actual velocity instead of accent, which, accent is a very unique drum thing and kind of is good for making groove. This has got groove templates. This has got, sort of micro timing in there. This one's taking the cake for me. Not to say it's the winner of my competition, but definitely the surprise of the competition. I just wanted to add some closing notes on these drum machines. So they're all digital. They're all rather affordable. Because you can only get the ER1 used, it's out of production. I'll compare the used prices. One thing I avoided talking about was prices because, if you're looking for just a cheap drum machine, that's price is going to be a leading factor. This is just comparing Korg's more recent digital drum machine options. So the ER1 can be found for roughly $300 and up on the used market. Volca drums anywhere between $100. $150 is the new price, so you really wouldn't pay over $150 for it. And the Electribe 2s, I actually got one of mine for $200, but I think the average price you'll find those for is about $250. So they're all very close in price, with the vocal drum being the cheapest and the ER1 being the most expensive. Also, a quick note about layers. I discussed layers in this review, and basically what I was doing with the Electribe 2 is using two of the voices to create a dual layer part. Now, the problem with doing that is when you trigger, you can't play it. You could sequence them, but you can't play it with triggering both voices. There's no way to tie the triggers together. So the only way to use that sound once you've made it is to resample it, which then you kind of lose the ability to go in and edit the independent layers like you have on the Volca drum. But the advantage of that is that you could, if you wanted to, stack, four voices to make a four-layer drum. The Volca drum does a good job at allowing you to edit both the layers. It also has a mode called layer 1 and 2, which allows you to control both layers at the same time, meaning you can adjust the decay on both layers with one turn of the knob, almost like a performance mode. It works pretty good, but it's not quite perfect. I guess one more note is that if you aren't comfortable installing the Hack Tribe OS on the Electribe, that would kind of limit its ability. I mean, it's still a pretty competitive device, but when you install that, the ability to resample your stacked layers of synthesized drums really takes that machine to